I want to take a moment and explain what's going on here. We get a lot of questions about our windscreens, where we got them, what kind they are. And this video happened over time. I did a previous video probably a year and a half ago about the windscreen you're seeing now. Thought I would release that, never did. Made adjustments to it. And recently, due to the heat, it's very hot here in Georgia, I decided to purchase a different windscreen. And you can see now I'm riding with that windscreen, and I'm actually probably going to end up keeping and using both depending on the weather right now. I really like the larger Plexifaring windscreen. It keeps the air off of you, keeps you warmer in the winter. You're not getting as much air blown on you, but in the summer I really like this smaller windscreen. This is the Ural touring windscreen, so I guess I'll just let the videos speak for themselves and we'll see how it goes. To do the install on the M70, I pulled the bellows down a little bit, added the bottom clip here, and there's just a knob that screws in that will hold this in place. Same thing on the other side over here. And the only modification I did to this, and I have a few pictures I'll flash in here for you, and I'll give you the model number too, is there were tabs. In fact, you can see right here where a little bit of the cut's exposed. I just pulled this off, and a tab similar to this one was up here, and I just took a little Dremel and a wheel, and it literally took 20 seconds or so. I cut it off this side. I did the same thing over here, and that's just to make room for this section. I found it was a little tight. Same modification for the CT or the gear up, only of course you can fasten this right on with no issue on these. And the handlebar mount, I still have to do my wife's. The only thing I can say that was happening with this rig is over time this would, no matter how much I tighten this would collapse down slowly. It would just over time work its way down. I found out when it rains, if any water gets in, that makes it collapse. In fact, it did on I-75 on the way home in that rain. This got wet and it kind of lubricated it, and all of a sudden I'm riding down the road and it lost like an inch and a half and rested against my mirror. I came back, took it off, took a little time to get this adjusted just right. I got it right where I wanted it, and then I marked this. I just wrapped a piece of tape around it so I could see how far it went in. And I cut a piece of dowel too long, saw that it was out too far, adjusted it until I got it just right. And then I cut another dowel identical to the one on this side, dropped it in this stand as well, put it all back together, and it's been great. It doesn't budge, it doesn't move, and it holds the windshield just like I want it. So, you know, there's a tip for you. I can't claim it, but it's a good tip nonetheless. And I added this visor up here, this deflector. I wasn't sure if it was going to do anything, and for the cost, I just wasn't, you know, certainly not going to buy two of them and try it, but I got the one. And in this setup, it actually does throw the air bubble just a little bit higher, and that gets the turbulence off my helmet, and the ride is quieter. This seems to, especially around that 50-55 mile an hour mark for non-interstate travel, this really seems to lift that air bubble up, and it quiets the turbulence around my helmet dramatically. So why did I get a two-piece Ural touring windscreen? Well, I needed to do a little bit of work, maintenance work, and some cleaning, so I took the Plexifaring off. During that time, I needed to go for a ride. It needed to go for a ride. And I went out with it with no windscreen, and it was a very hot day. I don't like the wind and pressure on my chest when I'm riding, but otherwise it was extremely cool. It was just much cooler in the heat. And my wife said the same thing about hers when she had her windscreen off, but I put it back on. So I got to thinking maybe I would like a smaller windscreen. Maybe I'm going to give this a shot. So I chose this one to install for a few reasons. One is just the simplicity of the mounting here. Just mounts at 2 points. And it's smaller, but I thought that the collapsibility of it would keep me from being committed to a single size windscreen. What if I get it and I want more airflow? I can lower it down. If I want less airflow, I can raise it back up. So the mount was fairly simple. Now I do have 1-inch risers on my handlebars here. So I did have to purchase my own bolts that were a little bit longer to be able to reach through everything and still secure the handlebars. Otherwise, it comes with the extra bolts that will work if you do not have handlebar risers. So it simply installs and clamps down. What I did was I measured 1 inch on each one here, mounted the windscreen. The bolts go through the plastic here, secure it. There are some bolts here on the side that add tension to these knobs that are in the back. I can show you that. Mounting knobs so that you can rotate and change the angle of it. And I don't know if I can illustrate this while I'm holding the camera, but to kind of raise and lower the windscreen, to increase or decrease this gap here, you rotate these mounting brackets. If I grab these and push them together so that they're squeezing together, then this windscreen will go up. If I pull them out like you see them here, the windscreen goes down a little bit, and I could actually have a little bit more travel. I could do this. I could pivot these down further, but I wanted this gap here. I wanted just enough gap that I'm not worried about when it is moving or bouncing that it can touch the headlight or anything. And that's worked pretty well. It's surprisingly solid. When I'm riding, even on rough roads, I notice it does move around, but it's not out of control. The slide part here, I would suggest checking and tightening all the bolts as you ride every 10-15 miles or so right after you put it on. Then after that, keep an eye on these. I noticed they loosened a lot at first, but they're not loosening so much now. But you can loosen those and then push down, and this windscreen will go down. So it drops down. Now the total windscreen is probably a good 3 to 4 inches shorter. And you can do the same and pull it right back up, tighten these back down where you want them, and the windscreen is adjusted. My experience for the last 15, 20 miles or so is that once you get all this worn in and tightened down enough, they're going to stay. I don't expect to have any problems with that. It stays solid. It doesn't pivot around. Again, there's a couple of cross bolts here, Allen keys. Put the Allen heads out here and the nuts to the inside. Same thing here. On this side, put the Allen head outside on the cap nut or cap bolt and the nut to the inside. That way you can adjust these, and you just take a Allen wrench, tighten these up if you see any flex or problem. But I've only done that once. After the first 10, 15 miles of riding, I gave them a little extra tweak, and I've had no problem with them wanting to move or pivot. I've adjusted the windscreen 2 or 3 times now, trying to find just the sweet spot in the performance. It immediately, whether it's collapsed or extended, takes the pressure off your chest, and that's what I like about it. It lets the air flow everywhere else. I noticed a lot of airflow at the hands I wasn't getting with the previous windscreen. A lot of airflow around my helmet, around my legs, because these windscreens, they have deflectors on the bottom of them, so I was getting a lot of extra air around my legs, which is great when it's hot. So I like all of that. What I also didn't anticipate, in a weird way, this windscreen is quieter. I hear less bike noise. And the reason for that is this huge plexifairing on the front is a sound reflector too. I'm getting all the sound coming up from the bike, the engine noises come up and reflect off of that windscreen while I'm riding. And in this one, I noticed an immediate decrease in engine bike sound. It's not being reflected back to me. And to be fair, I noticed the same thing when I ride without a windscreen. The bike noise virtually goes away. But when I didn't have a windscreen, I figured, well, maybe the airflow is just drowning it out. And that's not really what's doing it. It's reflecting less sound. What I do notice with this windscreen is right now I'm still getting a lot of buffeting around the helmet. If I collapse the windscreen, I get cleaner airflow around the helmet. The buffeting goes away. And if you're not sure what that is, airflow, air noise is different from buffeting. Airflow and air noise is the sound of the air rushing past the helmet. You hope there are no whistles or screams or anything. And if you have a good helmet, that's pretty much the case. It's aerodynamically designed. And you'll hear it, but you won't hear the buffeting. The buffeting is that whipping and snapping and the air being disrupted around the helmet and the airflow. And right now, I've made 3 or 4 adjustments to this windscreen. I'm thinking of doing one of 2 things. I could increase the angle of the windscreen a little bit. I do have a little bit more room here, and it just a little bit of adjustment can make a big difference. So I may pull that back. If that doesn't fix it, I still have, I guess, 1.25 inches or so here of adjustment. I could move this forward. Have to adjust it. The screen will go forward, and then I will pull the gap back down to the same clearance that I have here. And the result of that is it will stand the windscreen up more and hopefully deflect the air further up. But before I do that, I may put my extra spoiler on top of this. I purchased a spoiler for the plexifairing. I love it. It works great. The plexifairing up to about 50 mile an hour is fine on this one. But when I exceed 50, especially if I get on the interstate and I'm up to 60 to 65 mile an hour, I was getting buffeting around the helmet, and I didn't want to change the angle of the plexifairing. It was pretty settled in like I liked it, so I put this little spoiler on it, and you can see that in a picture I'll go find somewhere. And that little spoiler took care of the buffeting around the helmet at the higher speeds. But so far I'm happy with it. I'm happy with the quality of the product. I'm happy with how easily it mounted. I'm happy with the performance of it. Still doing a little tweaking, trying to take care of few last little things about it. And I like the way that it looks on the bike. If you're interested in one of them, check it out. And, happy riding out there. I hope this video helps somebody make a decision about whether or not to put a windscreen on and what kind to put on if they do. I'm always told that I forget to ask people to like and subscribe. I'll go ahead and tell you, hey, like and subscribe. I'd love it if you'd subscribe, and if you like our videos, hit the like button. It causes YouTube to bring them up, and it's no secret. We make a little bit of cash off the videos, so certainly nothing that I'm going to be able to ever retire on anytime soon, but it's nice. It lets me get a little extra Farkle or something here for the bike. Fills up the fuel tank a couple of times. Every little bit counts. So I do appreciate you watching the videos. I appreciate you clicking the subscribe button and the little bell so you'll be notified if we post something. And especially clicking the like button on the video, because that helps it get shared a little bit more and more people see it. If you have a question, put it down in the comments below. I do try to go over the comments and answer any questions that come up. Meanwhile, continuing through the year 2020, not a lot of riding activity going on, so I have maintenance to this bike to death. Just can't go anywhere else right now. We tried to have a vacation, but the hotel canceled our reservations, and areas closed down and campgrounds tell you you can't make a reservation. You've got to call, and then other campgrounds tell you that you can't just show up and go in. So we've just been doing day trips from around the house here. Not bad, but give me a little time to do some maintenance and cleaning on the rigs. So you guys have a good day and stay safe.